Hello there. This week we are comparing culture to bad breath. In other words, you tend to see it more in other people before you notice it in yourself. Cultural differences are pretty invisible, says David Smith, author of the book Learning from the Stranger. After all, we aren't just normal, and everybody who has a different culture is just weird. I like Smith's analogy of his mentality with his own experience with greetings. Being a Brit, he says, he finds the American customary greeting of, "Hey, how you doing?" to be inappropriately informal and downright rude. When someone actually greeted him with, "Nice weather we're having," he was so happy and thought, "At last someone greeted me in the right way." Smith cautions us about just looking at the outward signs of culture and tells us that it's only when we interact with each other that we truly get to know people from another culture. This reminded me of a comment that I made last week when the high school kids learning Spanish said they wanted to be understood and they wanted to be respected when they were doing missionary work abroad. They didn't even think about what they might have learned about God from people of a different culture. Again, we are normal, others are different. For whatever reason, that suspicion about those who are different from us translates into fear. And we know from Maslow's hierarchy of needs that safety and security are first on the list of needs which must be met in order to progress. We need to take a step further, Smith says. Get over ourselves, because culture is not just a question of different behaviors, but determines the way we experience the world around us and we give meaning to things. Smith gave us several examples of this. The first, hearing. He shared the story of the lovely Christian hymns taught to the Motuleoni Indians of Venezuela by well-intended missionaries. To the other locals, those hymns were just described as weird, wailing, and senseless. Smith says our cultural differences also affect how we see and speak. Even silences, Smith says, convey cultural meaning. These things are really, I think, founded in the values of a culture. This point was brought home to me for the first time when I was teaching at a multicultural high school here in Grand Rapids. Character education was integrated into the curriculum, and we had a very strong-willed principal who insisted on firm handshakes and looking directly into someone's eyes during a greeting. I had some kids from the Middle East and Africa who had an extremely difficult time with this because, in their culture, it would be considered extremely rude to address someone older this way. I had another experience with cultural norms when I spent a year in China. The first time I went to a Chinese restaurant, I had my meal, paid my bill, and left a tip on the table. Off I went, and about a half a block down, here comes the waiter, full tilt boogie. Miss, you forgot your money on the table." I tried to convince the young man that the money was for him because of his good service, and he got this horrified look on his face. No, my boss will kill me." So I thought, oh, that's ridiculous. But then I thought, hey, you are trying to impose your own cultural norms, and you didn't even bother to check or to find out whether this was appropriate in China. Finally, I take exception to Smith's assertion that the patterned nature of our lives, our culture, can be disturbing. For without those rules and regulations, chaos would ensue. Better, I think, to open our minds and learn all we can about other cultures, for therein lies the hope that we can become the loving world of our Father.